Hello, everybody. Today I want to talk about options and defining options. So essentially, we have two sorts of options, call options and put options. Let's get started with their definitions. I'm going to start with call option. Each option is a financial asset, and therefore, obviously, there are two sides, buyer of this call options or put options and sellers of these options. Buyer of call pays some premium, and in exchange, they receive the right to buy the underlying asset at strike price until expiration date. So there is something called underlying assets, UA, and that underlying asset has a price. And when you buy the call option, you pay something that we call that premium. And then for a specific time period, you will have the right to buy that underlying asset at the predetermined price that we call that strike price. Therefore, if the price of underlying asset goes up, then your payoff and profit will go up. On the other hand, we have the seller of this call option. The seller of the call option, they receive this premium, they collect the premium. However, in exchange to this collecting premium, they will have obligation. Their obligation is to sell underlying asset at strike price until expiration date. So they must do this. They must sell the underlying asset at strike price until expiration date. Now, in order to get to know these put and call options in better ways, we can, for example, talk about specific stock. For example, let's take a look at NVIDIA. It's right now $180.05. Now, imagine that I'm very optimistic about NVIDIA prices, and I think they'll go up. However, I don't want to take a huge risk. So I can do this. I can buy the option, like I can buy the call option. So we have four different cases, for example, here. Call and put. So right now it's on buy call. I can change it to buy put and then either buy or sell. So we have buy call, buy put, sell call, sell put. And here we have something which is expiration date. Like today is November 23rd, so it can be like for Nvidia, it's like Friday evenings, end of the market time. So it can be like November 28th, which is 5 days from now, 12 days from now, December 5th, so on and so forth. Now, how does this work? So, for example, here, the price for the option, again, what's the price? The price right now is $180.05. Now, here, for example, the price of this option for 100 with this, so these are on the left side, we have the strike prices. Let's just ignore break even to break even change and percentage change. Let's just talk about this strike price and the price of option that we have. So here, essentially, it means I can pay $2.49 to get the right to buy NVIDIA for the next 5 operation days at the price of 185 or at the price of $185. So if I pay $249, then I have the right to buy NVIDIA at this price of $185. So again, right now is 180. I can pay $2.49, and then I'm gonna have the right to buy this option at $185. Now, that's the example of this. And then we have also sell option. So the person who sells this, then they collect this money, and then when they collect this money, they'll have the obligation to sell Nvidia at $185 by the expiration date, which is November 28th. Now, that's the definition of call option. Let's keep going. Next one is put option. So buyer of put option pays premium. So no matter if it is call option or put option, when you buy something, you pay premium. It's exactly like if you go to store and buy, I don't know, bananas. When you buy something, you pay money. Yes. Options are no exception. When you buy an option, you pay premium. On the other hand, what do you get? You get the right to either buy the underlying asset or sell the underlying asset at the strike price. So if you are buying call option, you're gonna have the right to buy. You have the right to buy the underlying asset when you buy premium, but when you buy put, you have the right to uh, sell underlying assets at strike price until expiration date. So here, if payoff and profit go up when prices go down. Now, the seller of put exactly has the same thing, opposite thing. They collect all the premiums, they receive the premium. However, they have the obligation to buy underlying asset from you at strike price until expiration dates. Now, let's go back to again the real example that we have right here. And let's switch to, for example, Tesla. Now, Tesla right now is $393.83. Now, let's say the I have one stock of Tesla, for example. I can go here and then buy, for example, this Tesla with different strike prices, like here. For example, why would I do that? For example, suppose I have one stock of Tesla and I'm worried that the price goes down. So I'm worried that what if price goes down below 390, then I'm gonna, or below 380. As price goes down, I'm gonna lose more and more money. So, for example, I want to do this. I'm saying that uh, I buy the puts at this 390 for this 390 strike price. In that case, I have to pay $10.60. But if I pay $10.60 and if price goes down, then I have this insurance only although for next 5 days. For the next 5 days, if price goes down below 390, I'm able to sell my option at $390 because I have the right to sell my option at this price. Uh, Only for 5 days. However, if price goes, for example, even to 200, whatever, I will sell my stock at this 390. So for me, that's a insurance thing that if price drops suddenly a lot, then I have the ability to sell my stocks at this 390 strike price. So those are definitions of call and put options. And oh, one last thing. So the sell put, for example, I sell put and for 385. I received this $8.35. To be honest, like what happens in practice is that each option contract is 100 stocks. So it's going to be 100 stocks and it's going to be $835. But we can just ignore that right now. But if I receive $835, so if I sell this put option, I would receive $8.35 immediately at the time that I'm selling the put option. I receive this, and then I'm gonna make an obligation for myself. What is the obligation? The obligation is that if the stock price, if the buyer of that option wants, I have to buy their stock of Tesla at this price, $385 for the next 5 days. Now, that's the definition of buy and put options. Now that we have defined all of these. So again, buyer of option pays premium, pays money, get the right to either buy or sell the underlying asset. Seller of the option receives the premium, collects the premium. On the other hand, they have the obligation to sell or buy underlying assets at the strike price. Now, we can talk about the payoff and profit. So, first of all, premium transfers happen on the day of the contract. On the moment that you either buy the contract or sell buy the option or sell the option, the transfer of premiums happen at that second. However, underlying asset and strike price money transfer, usually they happen on the day of expiration. So the difference between profit and payoff is this. For buyer of option, payoff is always positive because they have the rights but not the obligation. So payoff for the buyer of the option is positive, zero or positive. However, the profit would be payoff minus premium. We would say like future value of premiums because there is a time gap between the moment that uh, you sign the option contract, you execute until the execution date, until expiration date. So there might be a time gap. That's why we say future value of premiums. But essentially, profit is payoff minus premium for buyer of option, and for seller of the option, payoff is profit is payoff plus premiums, no matter if we are talking about call or put options. So both of them, both for buyer and seller, both payoff and profit are opposite of each other because we are assuming that there is no commission. So whatever goes out of your pocket as a buyer of option goes to the other person, the seller of the options pocket. So it's a zero sum game if we ignore the frictions and commissions and those things. Now, call option. So if you want to talk about the payoff and premiums, so for call option, if S, which is the stock price, is less than or equal K, it's gonna expire worthless. Let's see what does that mean. And the payoff would be zero. The premium, so here for buyer, these are for buyer of options. Yes, both these tables are for option buyers. So they always have to pay premiums. So no matter what we have in profit, these premiums have a negative sign. Now let's distinguish between these two cases that the option expires worthless or the option exercises. Now let me go to that real example that we had. Let's go back to NVIDIA. Now here we have the buyer of the option. Now, for example, if the price of the option at the expiration date, let's say November 28th, uh, 4 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Central Time, if, for example, the price of the option, so right now, the price of NVIDIA is $180. Let's say I'm buying the option for 185. What am I exactly buying? I'm paying $2.49, and in exchange, I'm receiving the right to buy NVIDIA at $185 per share. Now, let's say that, for example, the share price doesn't change whatsoever. It stays $180.05. In that case, why the heck would I buy the stock at 185? I can just buy it at the market at $180.05. So if the stock price is below the strike price, I, as the buyer of call, have no incentive to exercise my option, because if I exercise, I have to pay higher. I can just go to market and buy it at $180.05. So in this case, the option expires. If the option expires, I just lost my $2.49. That's it. But if, for example, price goes up, maybe to $190, in that case, I'm gonna exercise my option, yes? So rather than $190, I have to pay only $185. Of course, I paid this $2.49 as well, but I'm gonna just pay $185 at the expiration date, and I get to buy this stock of Nvidia at this price. So that's why I want the price to go up. So I buy it at 185. That makes sense for me. Now, with that being said, so this is the table. If stock price is greater than K, then we exercise it, and then the payoff, how much I would receive is payoff like happens at the time of the exercise, yes? So here the payoff would be 190 minus 185. However, I paid also 249 cents here. So the profit would be this gap between these two, S minus K, which is $5, minus this 249 cents. So it would be $2 and 51 cents would be my profit. Great, great. Now let's move to put option and see when we exercise that, when we don't exercise that. So if the put option, if let's start with this case. If S, or stock price, is greater than or equal K. Now again, let's focus on the definition of this put option. So essentially, when I buy put option, let's say I'm buying this strike price of 385. So when I buy this, I pay $8.35, and I have the right to sell my stock at 385. So if the stock price is anything above this 385, I have no incentive to do this. For example, if at the time of expiration, if the stock price is 390, then why would I sell my stock, my precious Tesla, at 385? I can just sell it at the market at 390. However, if the price falls, for example, to 375, in that case, I'm going to sell my Tesla at $385. So in that case, if stock prices fall to 375, then I'm collecting this $10. Obviously, I paid this $8.35. So my profit would be that $10. So rather than selling at 375, I'm selling at 385. That's $10 for me, but I have to pay this $8.35. What I'm going to be collecting, my profit would be $1.65. So that's the gist of this table. Now, if we want to talk about a few numerical examples, we can talk about this that for a call option, you buy call option for tomorrow, stock price 260, strike price 270, premium is $2. So when I'm buying the call option, I have the right to buy the uh, underlying asset at the strike price at 270. However, if the stock price is 260, I'm not going to exercise it. I'm going to just buy it from the market for 260. So I would just lose my premiums, which is $2. So my payout would be zero at the time of the settling, yes, at the time of expiration. Or American options, you can exercise them before expiration date. You can exercise them whenever you want. But if I do that, if I at the time of expiration date, I'm not gonna just buy the option at strike price of 270 because I can just go to the market and buy it for 260. So my payoff would be zero. My profit would be, I would just lose my premium. Example two, sorry, this is not one, this is two, uh, is that you buy call option for tomorrow and then stock price is 280, strike price is 270. So now I have the right to buy the underlying asset at this price, 270. And I'm going to exercise that. Rather than buying that at 280, I'm going to buy it at 270. So if I do that, if I buy this at 270, then I'm making $10 payoff. Rather than 280, I'm buying that at 270. That's a good thing for me. So my payoff would be $10. However, I paid $2 premium, so my profit would be $10 minus $2, which is $8. If there is, example two was reversed for the seller of the option. So the seller of the option has to sell the stock for 270. They could sell it for 280 in the spot market, but they have to sell it for 270. So they lose $10. And then, however, they collected $2 premium. So payoff is negative 10, profit would be negative 10 plus 2, which is negative 8. Let's talk about put examples. Now, you buy put option for tomorrow, stock price 260, strike price 270, premium is $2. Yes. So when I buy the put option, I have the right to sell my stocks at strike price. If strike price is 270, I prefer selling at this 270 rather than 260. Yes. So I'm going to sell it at 270. How much payoff I have is 270 minus 260. That's my payoff. My profit would be how much? That $10 minus $2, that was the premium for the option. So it's my profit is going to be $8. Again, this is example two. Sorry. Now, example two talks about the fact that you buy put option for tomorrow, stock price is 280, strike price is 270. So again, I have the right to sell my option, my stock at 270. Why would I do that? I can just sell it in the stock market for 280. So I'm gonna let my option expire. I just have paid $2 and that $2 is gone. So my profit would be 0 minus 2, which is negative 2. Last example, you sell put option for tomorrow's stock. For tomorrow, stock price is 280, strike price is 270. So as the person, and premium is $2. As a person that you're selling the option, you are making the obligation for yourself. What's the obligation? The obligation is that you have to buy the underlying asset at strike price. You have to buy that 270. However, the buyer of this put option is not going to sell it to you because they would be like, I can sell it in the market for 280 rather than your 270. So you just collect that $2, and although your payoff is zero, your profit would be zero plus two, which is $2. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you know exactly the definitions and differences of buying call, selling call, buying put, selling put. That's it for this session. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful time.